It's the year of the next-gen consoles, and while there are some incredibly gorgeous-looking titles in the pipeline, the current generation still has some visually impressive games coming up. Let's take a look at 30 graphically intense titles that will be arriving this year. CYBERPUNK 2077. CD Projekt Red's next big title eschews medieval fantasy and third-person action of The Witcher for a first-person sci-fi romp in Night City. Developed on Red Engine 4, CYBERPUNK 2077 offers screen space reflections, dynamic lighting effects, global illumination, and realistic textures. The detail of the world adds further to its fidelity, and that's without ray tracing thrown in. The Dark Pictures Anthology, Little Hope. Supermassive Games hasn't given us too much gameplay footage for the next title in the Dark Pictures anthology titled Little Hope. Using Man of Medan as a benchmark though, we can likely expect the same focus on numerous dynamic light sources and realistic shadows. Characters will also likely look amazing, with detailed skin textures and subsurface scattering, and you can bet that every expression of terror will be perfectly captured with the animation. Little Hope is expected to release later this year for Xbox One, PS4, and PC. Halo Infinite. A lot is riding on Halo Infinite, especially following the iffy nature of past installments, but 343 Industries has impressed thus far. The new Slipspace engine has allowed for a deferred lighting system, physically based rendering, material rendering, per-object motion blur, and higher polygon counts overall, based on recent footage at least. All of this wrapped up in a stunning 4K resolution. Halo Infinite arrives in holiday 2020 for the Xbox One, PC, and Xbox Series X. Yakuza, Like a Dragon. Ryuga Gotoku Studio is back with another Yakuza title, this time a turn-based RPG instead of a beat-em-up. Don't let that distract you from its visual quality. Thanks to the Dragon engine, the amount of texture detail, bloom, screen space reflections, and realistic skin shaders bring the cast to life. Like previous showcases of Kamurocho, the Yokohama district looks similarly impressive and detailed. Yakuza Like a Dragon is out on January 16th for PS4 in Japan, and will arrive in the West later this year. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Though it suffered a slight delay to April 10th, Final Fantasy VII Remake's gorgeous fidelity is a highlight among many releases this year. The pre-rendered backgrounds are gone, everyone has a more realistic design, and the sheer mix of image quality, lighting, and anti-aliasing brings the game to life like never before. Yes, even compared to Advent Children. Perhaps most incredible is that Square Enix retained the signature mood and atmosphere of the original without any compromises. Ori and the Will of the Wisps. While it's not the most realistic-looking title to release this year, the aesthetic of Ori and the Will of the Wisps is still dazzling. Along with the incredible art design, players can look forward to dynamic lighting, where every asset and surface has been painted with light masking, and environments that dynamically react to Ori's presence. Like a painting in motion, the results are stellar, and we can't wait for the game's release on March 11th for Xbox One and PC. Doom Eternal. It's amazing how something as visually rich as Doom Eternal can also run so blazingly fast. If you've seen any of the gameplay footage thus far, then you've probably been shocked at the sheer image quality and geometric detail. As a showcase for id Tech 7, the game looks simply phenomenal, but the fact that it can pull all of this off while running at a consistently high frame rate is also noteworthy. Doom Eternal releases on March 20th for Xbox One, PS4, PC, and Google Stadia. Nioh 2. Nioh 2 looks a lot like its predecessor with its demon-infested villages, feudal castles, and forests. Nonetheless, it's sporting some fine upgrades like HDR, screen space reflections, and more effects and character detail. There's also a variety of options to prioritize either performance or fidelity as one sees fit. Anti-aliasing could be better, but we're hopeful that the final game will live up to expectations when it releases on March 13th for PS4. Half-Life ALYX. Half-Life ALYX looks beautiful, mixing dynamic lighting and shadows in one scene, and then playing with diffused lighting and atmospherics in another. Character textures, environmental textures, anti-aliasing, everything is on point, which is especially amazing when you consider that Valve wants it to run well on minimal requirements. Half-Life ALYX arrives in March 2020 for Valve Index. Resident Evil 3. If the RE engine wasn't praiseworthy enough already for the lighting and disgusting textures brought to life in Resident Evil 7 Biohazard or Resident Evil 2 last year, then Resident Evil 3 should take the prize. More effects like fire, destructible environments, and the sharpness of the textures on display, to say nothing of how the aesthetic plays with lighting for a mix of realism and horror movie atmosphere, make this reimagining worth looking forward to. It's out on April 3rd for Xbox One, PS4, and PC. The Last of Us Part 2. Already a pinnacle in graphical excellence without even having been released, The Last of Us Part 2 pushes some very high polygon counts and amazing texture work. Characters look more lifelike than ever before, thanks to subsurface scattering and near-flawless animations. While the anisotropic filtering doesn't appear as high as many would like, The Last of Us Part 2 still looks drop-dead gorgeous in every possible way. It releases on May 29th for the PS4. Lost Soul Aside. Inspired by the likes of Final Fantasy XV, Lost Soul Aside garnered attention for being developed by one person on Unreal Engine 4. Now backed by the team at AltaZero Games, the hack-and-slash title continues to showcase impressive effects and image quality despite its prolonged development. The jury is still out on when the game will release, but it's looking fairly good. Atomic Heart. Reports of its troubled development aside, Atomic Heart is another interesting title with strong visual qualities. If your hardware supports it, the ray-traced reflections should be especially worthwhile thanks to reflective surfaces, ambient occlusion, translucent shadows, and much more. Atomic Heart is currently slated to release for Xbox One, PS4, and PC. Babylon's Fall. Enormous fantasy medieval structures teeming with dust and diffuse sunlight, heaps of impressive weapon and particle effects, fast-paced combat against ornately detailed armored bosses. Babylon's Fall is definitely an odd mix of graphical wonders while staying true to the action that identifies Platinum Games. More details will be shared in the summer, with a release expected this year on PS4 and PC. Predator: Hunting Grounds. While it might not be the most hyper-detailed of games releasing this year, Predator: Hunting Grounds seems to capture the tension of the films quite well. From extensive foliage for the soldiers to fight through to the telltale thermal vision of the Predator, everything seems to be falling into place. Now let's hope the final release tightens up the frame rate and animations. Project Awakening: Arise. Imagine Monster Hunter, but set in a more traditional medieval fantasy universe. That's what Cygames' Project Awakening Arise appears to be at this stage, with detailed texture work, environmental textures, and anti-aliasing. It almost looks too good to be true, and despite missing its 2019 release, we're hopeful that 2020 will see Project Awakening re-emerge and dazzle us with even more gameplay. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. It's not enough that Microsoft Flight Simulator looks realistic with its incredible skyboxes, viewing distances, and textures. Using 3D map data from Bing Maps, the game actually renders local weather, locations, and clouds in real time. The result is being able to visit major cities like New York with all of their detail, from the skyscrapers to the streets. It looks insane and will be coming to Xbox One and PC this year. Godfall. Counterplay Games became famous for its gorgeous art design in Duelist. With Godfall, it's taking the aesthetic into a fully 3D hack-and-slash action RPG. Just from the in-engine footage so far, we're looking at top-notch global illumination, gorgeous material quality and rendering, and lots of particles. Only a bit of actual gameplay has been seen so far, but if it's anywhere near the in-engine demo, then Godfall could be a strong console exclusive for PS5 at launch. Skull and Bones. While it may evoke feelings of Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, the visuals of Skull and Bones are a big step up. This is reflected in the realistic waves, texture quality, and great use of motion blur when shifting perspectives. Overall, the real concern is whether this level of fidelity can hold up in an online environment, and at a solid frame rate. We'll soon find out when Skull and Bone launches. It's currently planned to release after March 2020 for PS4, PC, and Xbox One. System Shock. We've only seen pre-alpha gameplay footage for this remake of the 1994 classic, but it looks simply gorgeous. With dynamic light sources, real-time shadows, and sharp textures, System Shock simply dazzles while maintaining the creepy sci-fi mood of its predecessor. It's currently slated to release in Q1 2020 for Xbox One, PS4, and PC. Ghost of Tsushima. Channeling the style of Kurosawa films like Seven Samurai, Ghost of Tsushima's realistic skyboxes, volumetrics, and highly detailed vegetation almost seem impossible on current-gen hardware. Character models are also exceptionally detailed and high in polygons, right down to individual fibers, and the extensive post-processing helps give everything a stylized flair. Currently slated for a summer release on PS4, Ghost of Tsushima is simply stunning. Bright Memory. Currently in Steam Early Access, Bright Memory combines first-person shooting with hack-and-slash combat. Developed by FYQD Development Studio, the Unreal Engine 4 looks fairly slick. Effects like fire are on point, lighting and environmental textures are sharp, and character models are highly detailed. Even if facial animations could be improved, we're looking forward to seeing where Bright Memory could go in the coming months. The Pathless. A number of Unreal Engine titles on this list showcase cutting-edge graphics and realism, but The Pathless from Abzu developer Giant Squid Studios is different. It takes a cel-shaded approach while still injecting atmospheric lighting and realistic particles into the proceedings. The aesthetic gives way to some excellent animation and personality for its characters. The Pathless was slated to arrive last year for PC and PS4, but still has no official release date. Elden Ring. Though we've seen nothing gameplay-wise for Elden Ring save for the initial cinematic trailer, there's no denying that it'll be one of the more gorgeous titles of the year. It's rumored to be releasing in June, and while there's no confirmation of that, it certainly wouldn't be out of the ordinary. System Shock 3. For as impressive as the System Shock remake looked, System Shock 3 is on a whole other level. As the Unity keynote teaser at GDC 2019 showcased, the game is packed with all kinds of effects, detailed textures for its grotesque foes, and even presents Shodan as a glitchy yet dangerous technological marvel. Whether it releases this year or not remains to be seen, but it's currently slated for PC and, quote, other platforms, end quote. Vampire the Masquerade, Bloodlines 2. Even without NVIDIA RTX-supported ray trace lighting and shadows, along with deep learning supersampling and reflective surfaces, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 still looks incredibly good. Dynamic shadows and numerous light sources are a given, but realistic grimy textures and water showcase a darker side to the city of Seattle. The title is currently slated to release this year for Xbox One, PS4, and PC. Watch Dogs Legion. The sheer scale of Watch Dogs Legion, which allows players to recruit and play as any NPC in the world, is already nuts. Along with how accurate near-future London looks, there's an impressive amount of light sources, real-time shadows, reflective surfaces, and object detail throughout. We'll have to wait and see just how well optimized all of this turns out to be, but so far, Watch Dogs Legion looks pretty epic. Marvel's Avengers. The first thing you probably think of when it comes to a superhero game is how the explosion effects, particles, and so on look. Marvel's Avengers nails that, while also ensuring detailed skin texture, subsurface scattering, and very realistic dynamic hair for its characters. Throw in lots of post-processing, including depth of field and radial blur at specific moments, and you have a pretty good-looking action-adventure title. It's currently slated to release on September 4 for PC, Xbox One, PS4, and Google Stadia. Little Nightmares 2. The follow-up to the indie horror platformer is slated to release this year and already looks to be a big step up visually. Dynamic lighting and shadows look improved, character models are more detailed, and backgrounds and environmental textures are incredibly sharp. While it might not have a lot going on, Little Nightmares 2 still looks disturbingly good in its own way. Dying Light 2. Going from an open-world sandbox to a full-on action RPG, Dying Light 2's map is 4 times bigger than the original and makes use of ray tracing on supported hardware. Environments have increased interactivity, characters, including the signature infected, look more detailed, and the overall image quality is sharper. There's also a good amount of dynamic lighting and shadows to accentuate that horror atmosphere.
And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, please hit the subscribe button. Also, don't forget to switch on the notifications bell icon next to it. That way you'll never miss any of our videos. Thanks for watching.